the idea is to actually group them all together, and then you'll get an overall picture of what life is actually about. Astrology, when you have a look at the layout, it's laid out into 12 signs or 12 segments of a circle. And it's very important to understand with astrology, the circle is far more powerful than looking at it as in a straight line from Aries all the way through to Pisces. You really want to look at it in a circle, because once you limit life to a straight line, a beginning and an end, it becomes very fatalistic. Whereas if you start understanding everything in a circle or a cycle, you then realize, although you might start off at Aries, finish off at Pisces, it changes its cycle, it moves into a new pattern. So you want to divide a circle up into 12 parts. And then the 12 parts are divided basically into half, or 6 are divided into the dark or night half, and the other 12 are into the masculine or solar half. Now these 12, when we look at these signs, let's not get too far ahead when I look at astrology. Astrology is divided into 12 signs. Now, signs are what they call the NASA, or whoever puts it out, calls it a constellation, a fixed constellation. Now, these constellations consist, each constellation consists of a group of stars, not all the same amount of stars, but they have stars where in that particular, any one constellation, there's what we call a ruling star or a major or the boss star, if you want to call it that. Now, those stars are actually those, let's call them clans. They actually define the inner world, the inner makeup of life, the core, the root of life. And it's ironic that these words root, core, inner are described not just in astrology, but many sciences, many paths. And those actually define the different clans or the different, although astrology talks of 12, there's actually 13. But we generally will look at 12 signs. That's the accepted norm, and it's functional. The 13 is not an individual separate sign within those 12. It's actually it actually is a group. So the 13th is a group. And then those are actually these signs, or these what we call rulers, these groups, these clans, actually define the 12 different clans within Inner Earth.
Right. So can you get into Inner Earth for us, please?
Yeah. Now, Inner Earth, I don't have a picture of an astrology chart. I could probably send you one. But if you have a look at the layout of an astrology chart, you'll observe that it has an outer ring where you've got your signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. Then just inside that usually is a second ring. That's the houses. That's something different. And then you've got the space where what we see the angles of one star to another, and there's usually lines in there. And then you've got the inner ring where everybody puts a lot of astrologers will put the name of the person whose chart it is with their various details. The irony is, if you actually look at this from a bird's eye view, you would observe that the signs are those stars out in the night sky. And as you come in closer, that inner ring actually defines the hole to in the North Pole, which goes into Argatha.
Right.
And within there is an inner sun.
Right. If you look at the Aztec calendar as well, it
Yes.
also applies to that, doesn't it?
Correct, with a major 4-part cross, or else you've got your angled cross. Yes.
So that's 2 calendars in different parts of the world that correspond to each other.
Correct. They're all telling the same story, just slightly differently.
Yeah.
And then we have a big fight. This one's got this type of philosophy. It doesn't agree with us. We've got the right philosophy. They've got the wrong philosophy. They're all telling the same story.
I know. That's what I've uncovered anyway, that I've realised that they're all just telling the same story. Doesn't matter if it's the Quran, if it's the Bible.
Correct. The Bible's been told, how many times has the story of the Bible been told?
I know.
What's it, 16 times now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about the inner earth and what you know about Agartha?
I don't know if you've ever looked at I wonder if I should get into this right now. All right, inner earth, you've got, let's take your 12 different signs. We can also call them clans. Now, those 12 signs or clans relate to the groups or the parties or the different species. There's 12 different species.
Is this the 12 tribes of Israel?
These are what we call the lost tribes of Israel, correct?
Right.
Correct. And they appear lost at the same time when Atlantis went down, the sinking of Atlantis.
Yes.
Well, Atlantis didn't sink, it went into inner earth.
Right.
So when they talk of it as being under the Atlantic waters, well, yes, it is. If you look at Agartha, it is underwater, but it's not underwater as in covered with waters. Yeah. It's under the waters.
Right. It's like how they talk about the cities being underneath America and things like that, under LA and stuff. They don't mean under LA, they mean basically what as above, so below.
That is that as above, so below describes as above is us here above on the terrestrial or the surface. We are the above, and Agartha or inner earth is the below.
And this is alchemy as well and everything.
It all starts tying in once you start looking at this picture. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. These 12 signs are what we call the gods, and those gods, the origin of astrology comes from inner earth. So the result is you can't go up to these major big cheeses and just demand. They've got their own whole life that they're running. They're managing this entire place. And we want to go and ask or supplicate for something of our need. That's rather rude.
So do these inner earth beings, do they control the surface population?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And that's where we tend to knock the elite the whole time. I'm not saying the elite are great guys, but I am saying that the elite are actually controlled by these guys. These guys are actually the boss of the elite.
Yeah.
And again, there's 12, 13 of them. Remember, we're going to talk of 12, but there's actually 13. Let's just stick with the 12 because we're dealing with a subject. So these 12 guys are the boss of this place. Yes.
And we
individual.
Know that you don't get sacked from that position if you don't follow it, you know. It's not
you
like
don't get sacked,
you get a sufferance pay and all that. So yeah, I think if you didn't go along with it, I think that'd be the end, and they'd never see you again.
Well, we as terrestrial or earth beings do not belong there. It's not our domain. So yeah, I would say, that's like you're allowed up to this line and no further.
So
there is wars going on. There's also peace going on. That's why with astrology, you'll see that different angles, what we call them aspects in astrology. Very simply, those are angles. Now, when certain angles or certain events or certain things occur, it's because a specific angle has taken place, and that angle is either constructive or destructive for existence, for living, and you could call that war. Now, we assume that's one party or one clan going to war with another. No, it's not necessarily that type of war. That's how we assume wars are over here. But if you will take two speakers, you've got two speakers and you turn them to each other at an angle, you'll notice that where those sound waves cross, it distorts, it lessens, it doesn't function. That's a war.
So have you ever travelled to anywhere where there's caverns or entrances to the inner earth?
Yes, I have. I've been to the Himalayas.
Yeah.
I started off in Patal Bhuvaneswar. Is that where the caves are? There's an entrance to the Himalayas, and it's actually closed off during the day, and it's run or controlled by a Hindu priest.
Right.
And he takes you down there. You have to actually come as groups. You're not going to go as a little group. You have to arrange large groups. And when we went from South Africa, there was 8 of us, and we joined up with a group in India. And we went as a large group of people, and we went down these caves, but we were only allowed to a certain point.
Yeah.
They claimed then it was blocked off and we couldn't go any further. Well, I now know that's not true.
Right.
When you have a look at these hybrids, you want to call them hybrids. Some of them are the real, some of the big cheeses that come out, but these hybrids are only the guys who get into these top positions, not an average folk.
Right.
Like you. We're not going to get into those positions. You have to be a high-class hybrid. Not even the average hybrid is going to get up to that position. And again, you're elected. Prince Philip, between 1947 and 1949, you'll see he has a specific coat of arms, and each of the royal family, the current royal family on the English side of the world, you'll have a look. Each one gets given their own coat of arms, and those coat of arms again tell you about astrology. And when you start dissecting it, you will realize that that actually tells you who the different clans are. Those two supporters on the side of those coat of arms are actually the supporters, what we call supporters, or the lower caste, the lower in the hierarchy, the lower in this 13 family.
You can tell.
The two supporters actually show you the alliance.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll see with Prince Philip, on the one side, you've got the lion, and on the other side, you've got the Neanderthal, which represents the human race,
right,
the human species. And then the lion, which is their type of people or their clan. And then there was an alliance formed.
right.
So while we assume that every human is like against the royal family, or they don't like their clan, what they're doing, no, there's actually alliances, and the alliances are ultimately for progress, not necessarily what we'd like to see, what we don't classify as personal winning, but you've got to look at it on a larger picture. It's going cycle after cycle after cycle, evolution, or this development or upgrading of the human species.
Yeah, and you point.
Yeah, different guys came up for different reasons. Different clans came up for different reasons, and it is about progress at the end of the day.
So are they teaching us about their religion? Is this their religions? The Kabbalah and the Edda? The Norse
You could,
religion?
yes, you could say it's their religion. It's like, if we're going to learn how to use a stove, you're going to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
You're going to be forced to learn how to use how that stove plate works, whether it's high, whether it's low. So you're going to learn how to use their principles, their philosophy, their system.
Yeah.
You're governed by that system, which they have and they understand. And they simply passing it on to you, say, use this, and this is how you go about it.
And then the church demonized pagan worship, as they called it, and then told us it was the devil. And is that how it worked? And then they came along trying to save humanity? Or are they bad people, good people?
You tell a child not to put its finger on a hot plate or into fire or into a plug because it's going to burn. So the child believes from the parent that that plug or that stove plate is now demonized. It's demonized for your level of comprehension. Once you progress beyond that, where you actually start understanding a bit more, it's no longer demonized. Then you start understanding, but it's actually got power that I can utilize to advantage.
Right.
So it's demonized for a particular level of comprehension.
Yeah.
So we're talking always on intellect or comprehension or understanding. So according to that, things get demonized or things get exposed.
So if they control the earth, and they've controlled the earth for thousands of years,
yes,
why is the wars then? Is that just to thin the herd?
The wars come about because people become egotistical about what they believe is right and wrong. We need to get rid of the concept of right and wrong. That's a more open-minded. For a child, you'll tell him something's good or something's bad. But as you get older, those lines blur and it becomes more gray, and you start realizing it's not just pure bad or pure good. So the level of consciousnness, the level of understanding of most people are still on the this is mine and that's yours.
Yeah.
We've got to go beyond that. And this is why the elite or the aliens or these other gods are waiting for the right time to expose themselves. It's because we're going to demonize them.
Yeah.
They're not all bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't interfere and step on their toes when you enter their terrain or into their space. I'm talking when they come here onto Earth.
Yes.
We've been our safety or our natural inherent protective measures have been broken down purposefully, that we will be walking in a mall and you can have people brushing past you, and that's acceptable. The truth is that's not acceptable. If you look in nature, if you go into anywhere in nature, no two species and even same species and two separate clans can come close to each other. You need to give each other space, otherwise you will be bitten. Yeah. Lion's Rock, when you have a look at that picture there from a distance, I've given you a series or a group of pictures there. When you look at Lion's Rock, you'll see that it just looks like a average mountain, cliff faces that you can't climb up. But as you get close, or let's take it and then you move to the side, you'll actually notice it no longer looks like a Lion's Rock. It actually looks like another dinosaur species head. And then those claws at the entrance, that's not lion's claws. And there's a video, I sent you the link on that YouTube video that you could attach and tell people to go and have a look at his video. He did the whole video. It's not my work. Go and have a look at the video, and he describes it in depth about those lion's claws. But they're not actually lion's claws. And you start realizing very quickly that's another species. Yeah. Because those 3 toes, a lion has got 4 toes. These 2 feet have got 3 toes, and the nails are different from a lion's nails. He says there in the video that those nails are permanently protruded. A lion's nails are not permanently protruded, not in a resting position like us. And that was a particular group of people who lived there many long time ago, thousands of years ago. They lived in this place.
What country is this?
Sigiriya, I'm not sure what country. I'm not sure what country it is in. Sigiriya, I'm not sure where Sigiriya is.
Yeah, so could that be like an entrance to somewhere, you think? Or was it somewhere important? Was it a tomb?
When we talk of entrances, we tend to look for caves.
Yes.
But an entrance can also be what we call a stargate, or an opening into another dimension.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, we can talk about stargates where they actually are openings into a so-called solid wall, and you just need certain equipment to actually open up these gates. So you've got different things there that could open you up into another dimension. But this was the abode of these people.
Do you know how to do that?
Get into other dimensions.
To Stargate, yeah.
Stargate requires, there's different methods. Sometimes it's words. This is why the open sesame or the password came about. Sometimes passwords would do it. When the Egyptians, the large pyramid, the Great Pyramid,
yeah,
in front of the Sphinx was actually 2 doors that they were enormously heavy, that would be opened. You couldn't physically push them open, no matter how much force you used, but a certain mantra, a certain chant would open those doors.
Wow.
So
it's
you'll get
like
Stargates.
Tibetan, where they're allowed to move things with sound as well.
Yes.
Have you heard
yes.
of that? Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds very similar.
Yes. Which is also one possibility, is how they built the pyramids is through sound, how they move those blocks through sound and not necessarily through physical hard manual labor.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Also, you sent the church ceiling pictures. Was that to replicate the hollow earth? Was that to pick?
I said
the church ceiling pictures or the cathedrals?
That's to do with astrology. Yes, that's to do with inner earth. And this is where, if you get in an astrology chart, you've got your circle of 12. But then the 12 is divided into half. So you've got 6 upper, 6 lower. But then again, you've got the basic vertical line, which divides, again, 6 on the left and 6 on the right. Now, these 4 parts, very, very important. They are the foundation, or what they call the cardinal points. which takes you back and you start questioning then, well, why or what is the real function of a cardinal in a church? We just think that they're just some office that they've been given. We don't realize how high their office is. And these four, or this cross, is actually the cardinals or the rulers. And that's where you could start looking as to now, well, who are the actual rulers in the 12 or 13 clans in inner earth? You've got your cardinal rulers, and that would be these four that dictate to everybody else. So that these churches were built by very, very clever people. And those designs will actually tell you, that's what mythology is all about. So mythology in the Christian era would have been in the churches. Mythology in other stories with the Red Indians, with the Tibetans, with the Chinese, with the Indians. That's their form of storytelling. Christianity uses the church, and those are mythologies that they're teaching. And yes, the origins of it are in inner earth. Right. That's the source. Yeah. Runes come from a different clan to astrology. Right. That's why you've got different sciences. You don't only want to take one science, because then you're limiting yourself to one clan of education. You really want to take in as many of the clans as you can. So you don't want to separate your clan information. You want to join them all up. Yeah. So the runes would have come from a particular people. Now runes relate to the spoken word or the written word. Yes. But again, what is nice about the runes when you understand astrology's, I'm a bit biased in this, but astrology really gives a much more wholesome picture, but it doesn't give a complete picture. Yes. There are secrets that are taken out, that have been lost. Yes. Now with the runes are the spoken and the written language. Now, when you look at runes, you don't want to, and this is where I want to bring in the astrology aspect. When you look at a sign, any star sign you choose is made up of many stars which make up the constellation or the group. Now, each of those stars in that constellation highlight or point or will define a particular aspect. In that overall constellation, you've got one ruler, one big boss, if you want to call it that. So when you look at the runes, while you're looking at an individual rune and it would have this word or this concept attached to it, in actual fact, there are many concepts that are not highlighted because there's just too many stars. There's too many ideas. So they give you the main concept. But when you start understanding that those concepts carry with them other energies, you'll realize how much deeper the runes go. So you don't want to limit it to only the boss of the company. You want to see how his other hierarchy works and take off their talents, their abilities.
Yeah. Tabletop mountains. You sent a lot of pictures of tabletop mountains as well.
Yeah, tabletop mountain. There's another video. I didn't send you the link on that. There's another video, a YouTube video. I think it's done by a Russian guy, and then there's a voiceover, bit more, because he speaks in broken English, the guy who put the video together. Then he's got a woman, whether he asked her, whether the woman the lady very kindly put the video together. She voiced over in a bit more comprehensible English the story of this table mountain, or yeah, she voiced over this. And if you go and look at that video, that's a very interesting video where you will realize that Table Mountain, if you look at the diameter of it and you go through this video, you'll realize that Table Mountain is actually the base of a tree that has been cut off. Right. And all these large mountains that we see today were not originally rocks. They were originally trees. And then you can start looking at the size of them. And we're not talking just one species of tree. Sometimes you'd have spongy type growth in these trees, which would give you the mushrooms. And you'd have cacti type. So you'd have different formations of rocks giving you different structures or different designs of mountains.
So how was they turned into rock? Was that during a cataclysm?
No. Cataclysm, no.
Right.
The way, because what this guy does in this video, let me think of the name of the video. He's titled his video, "There Are No Forests on Flat Earth."
Right.
And what he says is what bothered him for so long is he could not understand why he managed to find a petrified frog. It started off with this petrified frog. And he couldn't understand, how could this frog be petrified? You leave any frog out in the open and it just disintegrates. But yet this frog petrified, and this got him going. He thought about this from a child. And he then realized the only way to petrify a frog is to cover it with soil so that there's no oxygen and it solidifies. Now, it's the same that when the major fire was put over the entire earth, they chopped down all these trees and used them to burn up the whole atmosphere. And we talk about global warming and all our bad gases we're putting into the atmosphere. Imagine burning the entire earth with these size trees. We talk about global warming today. It's a joke.
So was they just really old trees, or was that a different species?
Yeah, from 250 million years ago, when you watch his video, 250 million years ago and before, there were no rocks on this planet.
So the trees now are just like the shoots of them old trees, basically.
Yeah, tiny little shoots.
Yeah, that's...
So what they did is, long ago, then they scraped out, they took out all the precious metals off Earth.
Is this the Anunnaki?
I don't actually know who it is. It was before them. When you look at the size of the workings of who these guys are that worked these, let's call it these machinery. I mean, we're talking 6 miles up. What machinery do we have today that works up 6 miles? So, I mean, and the giants we talk about are not even that size. Our giants that we talk of today are not even that size. They can't even handle that. So I do not know who those species were.
So do you think...
Andy, when you start questioning a lot of this, you start getting to some really intense questions as to who would, first of all, take out all the certain type of minerals out of the earth, chop down all the trees, and then burn the place. I mean, why would somebody do that? Then you start questioning, and I haven't worked it out. I think it's rather scary to consider why somebody would demolish an entire planet and then put a certain species to live on that wasteland. That's a very dismal thought. I don't think that's not a very nice thought to think, well, and I'm living here.
That'd just be a mining planet then, wouldn't it? Because you just clear all the trees and everything so you could get to the surface easier.
Yeah. Yes.
So have you looked into Graham Hancock's work? Do you know Graham Hancock?
Yes.
So this layer of soot that he talks about, is this what you mean by that they've just burned the planet? So do you think maybe they sent down a bomb first of all just to clear all the rubble?
I can't work out at this stage which way it was done. Did they simply take out the minerals for themselves and go and use it for themselves and left everything behind, and another crowd came in afterwards and established a new form of life, another group, another existence, another creation?
It's the same people who built the pyramids who did this?
No, different people, because if you look at their sizes, they're telling different stories. So no, I think they had a totally different agenda. But they just decimated the entire planet, left it barren, went off and did their own thing, and somebody else pulled in and said, right, we're going to now create a new creation, and we're living on this place.
So do you believe us humans was created as slaves?
Yes.
Yes.
When you look at the Sumerian tablets,
to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's not as fatalistic as they like to preach or like to put out. Remember, again, it's a control mechanism. You need to look at the basics and then question and think a lot. Well, we were basically designed, the human was designed to dig canals and ditches. Now that's really a mean, just to give you that little bit of information and say, well, that's your lot. That's really mean. You need to question, we also have a soul aspect. So you don't want to look at just the pure physical aspect of us having been created and through the various forms of species of creation from which we came. You know, when they talk of artificial manipulation, artificial genetics, there's not these sudden jumps, and science today knows there's not sudden jumps. It's purposeful gene manipulation. And we started from a certain place and kept coming up, and were altered and modified the whole time until we eventually ended up with a human.
So it's like, if they're so advanced, why would they not have some machines that can do what humans can do, and they can be controlled easier? Or was it, maybe machines are harder to look after because then you have to maintain them and everything like that. You have to home them and set up maintenance. With humans, you just shove them in there, stick a leader in amongst them all, and then that's it. You've got a slave labour force.
You're touching on some very sensitive stuff here, and I'm wondering how much of your public are going to handle this. There's two reasons. Number one, yes, it's a self-thinking, self-operating machine. So you could say on the one hand, a machine cannot think for itself. It cannot go and look after its own terrain. You can't dump a machine and expect it to also maintain its environment. Yeah. You see, it's fair game. This species can be controlled. We are dictated to and told we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But you also need to clean up after your mess. Yeah. In actual fact, clean up what we've messed up, you're going to sort out afterwards. The sad part is, and this is not everybody, but it's also the surface of the earth is also a food hotspot. Yes. So we're also food.
Yeah, I've heard that was also, yeah. Do you mean by the, do you mean the energy feeding, or do you mean actually physically eating? Or?
Physically.
Yes.
Physically. And energy as well, but energy comes about, energy is a different aspect. They're also taking our energy, but physical, you can see some of the Mayan pictures, you'll actually see some of those gods actually eating human.
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
He's fried in a pot and he's actually eaten.
To look like so we're
but not just one species likes the taste of our meat. But don't look at it so fatalistically. Remember, while physically it seems like you're born at a certain time, this is where astrology is so wonderful. It teaches you cycles. While you might be born and you die, doesn't matter through natural disaster, through natural death, or being killed, your soul still goes on, and there's a cycle of the soul. And astrology also teaches and explains the soul. So you don't want to look at it so fatalistically as in, well, I'm going to be eaten or I'm going to be killed purposefully. You also need to consider, well, there's the soul aspect. Because energy can't die. Energy can't be killed. No. You see, the soul is also a convenient system. It's a deceptive system. You don't want to look at the life or the energy of a being as only a soul. People even battle to grasp soul, and soul has different aspects to it. It's not just a thing that houses. You've got mind is separate from that. You've got your identity, which you will carry from past lives or past memories. So it's got different aspects to it. So it's called it like a fruit with the various seeds in the center. So it's got different aspects to it. And sometimes you yourself will grow those and get rid of some seeds, put in new seeds. And that whole orange, for example, is the soul. But it's got different aspects that make up the soul.
Right. So
when you understand that astrology describes the source or the origin of energy, you will realize that certain events, certain major comings together of 2 and 3 and 4 different energies, when they come together, they will cause different things to happen in life. For example, when you make a cake, you will take different ingredients and you end up with a certain recipe. Just change those ingredients slightly and you would end up with a loaf of bread. Change it yet again and you'll end up with a pie. So these different energies, when you start understanding how you can combine them, and it's not by choice that you combine them, you just need to know when these energies are going to be at particular angles to each other. When they come together in that formation, you're going to end up with a particular picture or particular concept or particular event. So when you understand those events, you can then say, all right, I know what that's sort of gonna manifest, demonstrate. Yeah. So you're just causing different angles or different combinations. Yeah. And the same two planets will form, in astrology, there's five basic or five chief angles. And those five chief angles of the two same planets doing all five give you a totally different end result. Yeah. And those are the angles or the aspects of which you're talking.
And this would explain why the Masons are so into angles and everything.
Yeah, Masonry, not just Masonry, yes, Masonry as well. When you look at a square in Masonry, which is like the highest level for the main guy in the lodge. Yeah. A square would be the square angle. That's one of the angles in astrology. You'll get conjunct, which means they're sitting right next to each other. Yes. Then you'll get sextile. Yeah. You'll get square. Yeah. You'll get a trine, and you'll get an opposite. And each of these five angles, giving different things, are put into, as you say, the Masons, when they built these churches, yeah, they knew specific angles will also either accentuate even sound, but also a certain energy when you get into the building. It will actually, churches have got a very powerful vibration that people don't understand, and it's because of these angles, yeah, also the position on which they're built. Right. Again, that's got powerful energy. The alignment of the churches are aligned in the ley lines. Yes, yeah, yes, energy points, yes. And it's ironic, they're also called dragon lines, which relates to Draco or the Alpha Draconians.
Well, I'm going visiting some this next week, so make sure you look for that video. I'm going to an underground cavern, and it's called King Arthur's Lair or Labyrinth. And it's yes, they've got some stories there about King Arthur and all that. Make sure you look out for that.
King Arthur was from Inner Earth. Yeah. He's not a human.
I think that's what they're going to explain when you get there.
Yeah. Fabulous.
But I thought that anyway. You know, I'm realizing now that all these people, these great people we think of, you know, they've all come from even Jesus, probably. You know. So it's great because you've got all your history to look back at and learn. You know, from what you've been lied to. So
it's terrible how much we've got to undo.
I know.
The story of Jesus or God. There's actually three different levels there that you're talking of. When we're talking of God, there's three different levels. You're not talking of one and the same. So that's also where you've got to use your intellect and start to work out, well, which level is being described.
Yes.
The angles, the function of the angles is to show you the energy that's going to be around at that particular moment. And once you're prepared and you know what energy is going to come about, you know how to handle yourself when a situation arrives. So it's a preparatory system.
So is this anything to do with the solar eclipse? And is that where energies meeting up? And
yeah, because the solar eclipse is what we call in astrology, we call conjunct, where they're sitting together. Right. But you get different types of eclipses.
Yeah.
So what people don't understand, and this is also what I'd like to explain in another time with you, is when you look at the planets, how they move, we assume they just move in a straight, nice, pretty line, no deviation. But in actual fact, these planets move up and down the whole time. They don't just move in a straight line. They actually oscillate, from which you get your sine wave. This is where the sine wave, the concept of the sine wave, comes from astrology, because it oscillates the whole time. So now when you have an eclipse, you'll have it where sometimes the sun and moon are sitting furthest away from each other or sitting closest to each other. And relative to that position, you're going to have a stronger effect or a weaker solar eclipse.
Right. Wow.
I just want to describe something on mythologies here. Mythologies are past times. When we talk of past times, you need to also realize that we're obviously talking of inner earth experiences or events.
Yeah. But can I just say, no doubt, when you're waiting for one of these occurrences to occur, events, yeah.
Yes.
You'd need to use mathematics, you'd need to use astrology, you'd need to use all the esoteric arts to predict it, wouldn't you? And so that's where they all come in together. So
yes, to get a full,
so
to get a full picture, you want to apply as many of them as possible together.
Yeah, that's it.
So you want to take different groups, because each one is going to give you a different science. Remember, the different guys in inner earth, the different clans, gave different pieces of knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's like reading a book and watching a movie. Yeah. It's the same story, but you get a totally different picture.
Yeah. But why is it?
So you want to,
why is science just?
There are, but it's not made public.
Right.
And it's only for those. Remember, the controlling mechanism that's applied to Earth is done on purpose, because not everybody's consciousness is such that they could handle the truth or could handle the evolution or the growth of the planet. Some people are stuck on tradition. Some people are stuck. They want to keep this particular method forever.
Yes.
But that goes against nature. Nothing in nature is static. It has to move. It has to grow. It has to evolve. Yeah. So those who want to hang on to that system will fight bringing out these new energies. It's like, why have the elite not shown us themselves in their true form? It's because most people want to believe that we're the only people on Earth. And they're going to fight it. So we're actually going to damage and harm very good people, very powerful people who are coming up.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
You know, the Buddha, was he a real person? Pythagoras, was he a real person?
Yeah.
But he was more accepted in those days. They were more accepted. But if we are to see them,
Hercules, don't
yeah.
You know the story of Hercules
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
With a viper maiden. And that's what gave birth to the Scythians. And then you also have Beowulf, the same story.
You'll have
the Beowulf, the story.
Okay, let's go to Hercules.
Yeah.
Hercules had 12. He had 12. What is it? He had 12 things he had to do. What's it called? 12 great things he had to do.
I don't know. I'm not too sure about that.
I can't think what the word is that he had to do. Anyway, he had to do 12 major things.
Yes. Yep.
Well, it's ironic that there's 12 signs of the zodiac.
And there's 12 houses of runes.
Yeah. So when you look at what Hercules actually had to pass through, we could say on the one level it's a fable and he had to pass through these 12 events. Or was it that in actual fact he went and met all 12 clans? But we always get so involved in these different things that he had to do that we never ever question, well, at the end, what was the outcome and what was the growth and what was the point? What was the final result? Was it a betterment or was it just those 12 fancy stories that we focus on? We never go beyond that. So we're like children where we're still learning and we get enthralled with these wonderful stories where he passes through each of the 12 signs. Instead of saying, okay, those 12 signs have evolved and now they're going to start again.
Yeah.
But this time on a higher level or a higher consciousness.
Do you know what I find amazing is someone like yourself who actually found this information before the internet was about. So how did you come across the information? Like, was it someone you met or was it a book you read? Or
we humans are not just made up of physical matter. We have a soul and we have other beings from elsewhere apart from inner earth who have an interest in different aspects of existence. like you're a researcher, you're going to study particular aspects of science, particular aspects of phenomena. So you'll be focused on that. You have yet another person who's interested purely in mathematics. You'll have another person who's interested in geography. Now these, you can call them, let's use at a level of words, these are different gods interested in different aspects. So now once you tend to focus, you have a particular interest in one subject. You'll have outsiders who resonate. That's why the law of attraction, like attracts like. And you need to realize that apart from the physical level, you're attracting energies, beings, things, whatever you want to call it, from other places outside of this place we know, who will actually take communion with you on a non-physical level. And these beings will have conversations. Now we start talking, you know, this person's hearing voices. This person's like seeing things. He's mad.
Yes.
We're not just physical. So my help comes from beyond the physical.
Right.
I'm what's known as a medium mystic.
Right.
Now, I've got information that comes from elsewhere, and I've been helped. And all of us really are, if we get into the soul, if we get into the deeper aspect. We're all being helped, because who's driving you? Who gives you information? Andy decides, today I'm going to study this. And somebody says to you, Andy, have you seen this? And now you're going off on a King Arthur trail. Who's helping you, and who's going to tell you where to focus the camera? And afterwards you get back and you say to yourself, but I don't recall seeing that when I looked at it. And yet your camera, you posed it at exactly the right position, and it takes a photograph of something that brings otherworldly or secret information to you. Who's doing that?
It is.
You know, sacrifice we always associate with blood and guts and gore.
Yes.
But sacrifice can be a very positive thing when used in other ways. We just tend to associate Jesus was sacrificed on the cross. But what if that is a concept and not a physical event, to try and explain to you, you can sacrifice one thing, like you want to get a child out of a sand pit. To sacrifice him playing in the sand pit, you're going to offer him an ice cream. So is that a negative?
Yes, yes. No.
I mean, you talk about words. We talk of the core. Science teaches us that the center of the earth has a molten core, magma. We call it magma. Have you actually looked at the word magma? Exactly what you're talking about, like with the word you're looking now. Magma means the modern origin of the word means squeeze. So you think, well, what's squeeze? Is it because it's squeezed in between the outer surface of the earth? But if you actually go, I just want to get the wording right. It originates from an old Norse word, knotha, K-N-O-T-H-A, which also means to press.
Yes.
So you think, okay, so what's that mean? But you need to realize from the word knotha comes the word knot, K-N-O-T, a rope we tied in a knot.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the word knot, and you'll realize how many ancient cultures have got knots, and there are so many beautiful knots that the Celts did, the Egyptians did, the Tibetans did, the Chinese, and still today, they form these elaborate, beautiful knots. When you go to a Chinese temple, you'll get some of these bracelets, and some of the knots are exquisite, they're beautiful. And you start questioning yourself, well, what's the function of a knot? An interesting thing about knots is, did you know that knots falls under the heading of mathematics?
No.
And you start thinking to yourself, why
Is that
would
because of the
knots?
angles then?
All these circles and what have you.
Yeah, the angles, yeah.
So you start questioning to yourself, why would knots fall under mathematics? And it falls under the subheading of topology. Not topography, but topology. And I want to read you the actual meaning of look at knot and you go and study what it actually means, it says here it's the study of the properties of space under continuous deformations. So that's the definition of a knot, and it's under mathematics. You have to question to yourself, why would something as simple as knots fall under mathematics? And then you have to question the word which they use in the dictionary, continuous deformations. And then you start questioning, magma is in inner earth, and then inner earth has this inner sun, and this inner sun has got electricity. Yes. And then it's continuous deformation. So you then start questioning yourself, what is continuously being deformed? Then you start realizing that the different aspects or different angles in astrology will cause different deformations in energy, coming from the source in inner earth. And these different deformations, which is what we call a knot, this is why you get different knots that are formed, and the different knots are going to tell you different types of energy. So knots, if you go back and you go and study it, you will realize that knots are actually mathematical formulas for different types of energy.
Right. I always thought magma came from just the two tectonic plates grinding together. Because if you look at where all the pyramids are, all the volcanoes are, it's all along where the two tectonic plates meet. So does that not add up?
Yes.
So why would they think it come from the centre of the earth then? You know, that's just to hide, obviously, what's going on, isn't it?
This is why astrology is so wonderful. Astrology will tell you that the sun is the core or the center of your being. You've got 3 outer planets and you've got 3 inner planets, and in the middle sits the sun. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the sun as being your core, you then realize that you've got different... When the sun is there, the sun generates energy, but we don't always understand the energy. It generates electricity, but much more than just electricity. It generates something that's able to cause major events, which we will talk as physical events, as you say, earthquakes, volcanoes. It causes these various things. But the different energy under these conditions of it being pressed or notha, it's causing different things to occur, and it starts with the sun, which is why around the time of Galileo, Kepler and all that, why they decided to make the sun the center of the universe, a heliocentric system of the stars and the planets. It's taken down to astrology where you'll realize that the sun is the core or the beginning or the source of all these events that take place. So the sun is not just simply giving off heat. Yeah. It's not just simply giving off electricity. It's not just giving off magnetism, from where we talk of the gravity or electromagnetic fields. It gives off a lot more than that, but that's just on a basic level, and that's our level of comprehension at the moment, that we just accept that this center or magma or the core of the earth is simply just giving 1 or 2 functions. No, it gives a lot more functions.
HOLGER, the light's gone really bad at the moment.
Yeah, I see that.
So we can finish off now. We've done longer than I expected. We've done an hour and a half nearly. So if you want, we can wrap it up here, and then we can have some things for another show.
We can do that.
If that's okay with you. That was excellent.
Yeah, to help you with your runes, there's another aspect that I want to put in, that when you realize that the core or the inner earth are the source or the origin of all these energies, you need to realize that when you do something as simple as shuffling a group of tarot cards, or in your case, when somebody shuffles the runes, if that's a language from down there, from a certain clan, when you realize that that's the source of energy, people need to understand that while we think we are churning the ocean above, this bag of runes, this box of runes, while we think we are churning it with a certain consciousness in mind, in actual fact, somebody else who's the owner of this energy is participating at the same time, which is why you don't get haphazard readings. Something else is in control of that energy to put those runes out at a certain time for that person on that day. It's all to do with the alignment of energy. You could bring in on a very mundane, basic level would be incense sticks, for example, so that you invoke another type of being. Yeah, and then you'd have a look, okay. And then you'd have a look, what type of incense does this originate from? What plant does it originate from? And which sign rules that particular plant? And you'll find that certain stars or constellations rule that particular flower from which that incense came, and that's going to enhance your rune readings. Right. At the same, certain colors. Colors is another science on its own. So when you combine again a certain type of color, so you're not going to paint your walls a different color each time you got a new client, but you could put out certain gemstones, for example, that have certain colors. You could put a certain shade over a lampshade that resonates a certain color because it's relative to that person. Right. And you would find your readings are totally different. Right. So you want to combine the energies.
Do you believe that you have to take the runes into the ley lines to energize them?
No, the runes, they say that that's how you recharge them. Yes, you can. But if you think about it, where are the ley lines getting their source of energy from?
That's what I want
so if
to know.
You
where is that from?
From Agartha.
Right.
From that clan in Agartha.
Right.
But if no matter how old or on what format a poem is written, the author will always be the author of that poem.
Is this from a shrine the power comes from? Is there a shrine where this power gives off, or is it like a star?
It's the entire inner earth. No, it's the entire inner earth.
Right.
The entire inner earth. That's why it's the realm of the gods.
Right. And can humans go in the inner earth?
Certain ones can and certain ones can't.
Yeah.
There are criteria. Right. It's not for everybody. As I said, if somebody's going to come in a stranger's going to come off the street and come into your yard, are you going to allow him in, Andy?
Do they look down on us? Do they look as us like monkeys and really primitive?
No. We have a function. No. They have an interest in us.
Yeah.
Zodiac.co.za. What you have to look at when you look at astrology is, as I said, because of the cycles, you're going to realize that while we think in the last video, I talked about how everything transcends or moves up a level each time. That is very interesting when you look at the creation of life. The creation of life does not start from a single point or a single being. It alternates. This is why alternating energy came in, alternating electricity. Once you realize that you've got the alternating concept versus the direct current, you'll start realizing that there's different theories, and necessary to where one's born in life, time that one's born, the age that one's born in, different stories get told. But the origin is not from a single point, and it's not a static single, let's call it, being that designed it. It swaps. For a time it will be one dimension, another time it will be another dimension. So it swaps the whole time. It's not static. It's not from one being. Ley lines, their energy, it's a part of electricity, but it's not the electricity that we know. It goes deeper than that. And that's also a subject that I don't know how much space we'll have. That's a subject that I will dig into and show you some other aspects. Let me try and explain it from this side. When you dream, you've got visions that don't belong in this world. It's a real world, but yet it's imaginary world. Now, those ley lines are the same like that. They energy fields that somebody is actually put in who understands energy, like gravity. Who can explain gravity? It's part of the electromagnetic field. It's not a visible thing, because we're looking for visible things. It's not that. It's an energy field. It's a, as I said, electromagnetic. It has a lot to do, and it comes from the sun. It has a lot to do with that sun that puts out certain magnetism, certain electromagnetic fields. Yeah, let's leave it like that for now. When they talk of timekeepers, it goes beyond timekeepers. It's also dimensional, interdimensional travel. It takes us into other places. So there's two ways of working with those ley lines and the nodes. The nodes will actually help you physically and sometimes only mentally travel to another dimension. Sometimes you'll only get information. It depends on the type of ley line. Different points have got different strengths. They do different things. No, a ley line, it has different functions. Remember, again, we've got different types of beings, different types of energy levels of I'm going to call it humans, but I don't want to limit it to humans. We've got different beings that require different things. Trees, you'll notice, also follow. When you'll see where a forest ends, it usually will follow or end on a ley line. You'll notice they follow. It's not that the roads have been made and the trees just end there. Have a look in nature. They will run with lines and nobody questions it. Grasses, why is there a parting in grasses, for example? These are ley lines. They run the entire grid. Have you seen the picture of the blue earth with the grid lines running vertical and horizontal? That's already highlighting for us there are these grids. And then there was another movie done by Spirit Science, and they show that each dimension has a different grid format. So we don't have one grid of ley lines. We've got different grids. We've got them where they lay it upon each other. Argath, as I said in the last video, is our source. So they're going to take you into that realm first of all. But then there are realms beyond that. And they will take you, depending which ones you use, you will go into further, deeper dimensions. So you've got, when you talk of the circles, as it says, it's a vortex. The pyramids are also there. They had other structures around them, but within you had a vortex that was formed. So sometimes you'll just see the plain vortex on the outside or the start of the vortex. On other times it's hidden within, and I will show pictures of those. Obviously, there's 7 basic things that can activate these nodes. You don't need only one, and this is why you'll notice that they do it obviously with certain times that align with the stars. Those are very important. So timing is very important, because timing will actually align you with another dimension. We assume time only runs on this dimension. Time runs on another dimension as well. And you've got to align yourself up so that, like a Stargate, you're going to have both sides open at the same time. It's not a case of gaining power. We assume that everything, when we look at these things, we assume it's about power. It's not always about power. The point of life is about progress. So it's about, on different levels, different dimensions, it's about progress to move everything up. We assume we are the only being or the only level or the only dimension that needs to grow. No, every dimension grows right through all the way down. Every dimension is growing. No one is static. They're all progressing. And that's the whole point. There is no, well, it's just for one. No, it's for everybody. And this is why we think, oh, well, we're going to go to heaven and we're just going to sit in bliss forever and do nothing. That's delusional. I don't believe in one particular philosophy. You need to combine them all, and I will show as well how by combining them all you get a much fuller picture. So you don't want to stick with one. Certainly build your foundation through one philosophy, but then start realizing the value of employing others. And that's with all religions. Spiritualist. But Andy, a lot of the humans, a lot of us beings that are here are not originally from here. So what the result is, we've come here for a purpose, for a time. And once we've got that growth, that progress, we will move back up into our place and move on, or either elevate ourselves within our own dimension from which we come. And we can sometimes move on to the next dimension and go up higher until you just keep traveling through the different dimensions. Agartha would be classified as another dimension. Let me explain a basic one. Yeah, on Earth, according to astrology, we've got 3 main planets that define our external world. That's Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. Now, those three planets alone tell you, and if you think about it, why is it continually told we are in the 3rd dimension? We live in a 3rd dimension because we have 3 dimensions. So if you think about it, all right, so when you talk of a dimension, one of the dimensions is the ghost dimension. That's another dimension. It's another world within our world. Go higher, as you say, the people who come up from Agartha, we have a look at those people as being aliens, entities, whatever you want to call them. They are from yet another dimension. Now they all conglomerate here, and we have basically 3 dimensions. So those, if you want to look at it on that, you can also call them parallel worlds, as opposed to just a single distinct dimension. They do interact. Yes, they're just another form of life. Ghosts are very real. They're another dimension. I mean, if you think about dreams, what are dreams? We wake up and we had a nightmare, and it was so real. You can be killed. You can die of fright in a nightmare. How can that happen? The Matrix, one of my favorite movies, where Neo first goes into the Matrix, and he came out with blood, and he says, well, how's that possible? He wasn't doing anything in the physical body. Those are other dimensions which he was accessing. The pharaohs were the guys from Agartha. They are those Norse people that came up. They came originally to the end of the first piece of land that you come as you come outside of Agartha, outside of that opening. They took the land there, the red-haired people. There's actually information of this on the internet at the moment. You can go and research that the red-haired people were the start of the pharaohs, which were the Norse. And then they chose to come to Alexandria. They chose to come to Egypt there and set it up on that grid. We earthlings would never know where these nodes are. They know from underneath because they understand the whole system or the source of the system, and they've just decided to cap it on the other side so that there's actually a connection. It's no good putting an arc that's far apart. They've lined it up on top. Again, that's where the as above, so below comes in. They've got the grid underneath on the entire inside of Agartha. They've simply come in with their superior technology, come and seen, all right, that's where it is, and the Great Pyramid stands on the other side of one of their nodes. It comes down, Andy, the bottom line is, are you ready? Have you completed your level of consciousness that you are ready to move to the next level? If you are ready to move to the next level, you will be okay. If you are not and you do it prematurely, you will be killed. So it's a consciousness thing. It's not am I the right being? Am I of the right blood type? Am I of the right family? Am I of the right whatever? It's a consciousness thing. It's not a physical thing. You understand why you're here. You'll realize you don't need to go somewhere else. You've been put here for a reason to learn your journey here. And that is where astrology very nicely will show that relative to your different planets, you can see how to actually access the dimension of Agartha, but not necessarily go there. So astrology is a map to actually tell you, but listen, you don't, to go and visit Hong Kong, for example, you've got 2 options. One, you can actually physically go there, or you can actually view it in movie format and learn. You don't have to be there physically to grasp or to learn what the necessary lessons are to learn. So no, you don't need to go there. We'd all like, when I first heard about Agartha, I wanted to go there. Sure, I did. But as you start learning and studying, you start realizing it's not necessary. And they understand all the dynamics of the technology that we have, everything and beyond. They understand, they are the source of all fables, of all religions, of all technology. Every level of consciousness on this planet comes from them. So if they understand it fully, I mean, how much more do they know? And they understand all of it. Remember, there's the clans, as I said, the different clans, each handling a different aspect. Well, these clans work as a group. They don't work as an individual clan. They network with each other, if you want to call it that. And they understand this inside out. Realize as well that Agartha is not the end. Agartha goes deeper. So they, in turn, are in touch with other dimensions from whom they get information. Because the giants within Agartha don't originate from Agartha. They originate from another dimension much deeper. Earth is a different dimension. When you understand that through, let me give a simple example, through sound and through light, or through a hologram. Light, a hologram, for example, has got 3 different points that it comes together and it produces what looks like a physical dimension. But that's light that's created a physical thing. Now it's the same with the sun. The sun is suspended. I'm trying to think of what movie. There are a few movies where these guys have magnets, and in between they manage to have something floating. That's the basic principle. It's nothing fantastic. We think it's fantastic because it doesn't have strings, because of our degree of growth in technology. But when you start realizing you can suspend something in mid-air, what they call a frictionless magnet, for example, which is sitting on a pin, but the pin is not touching and it rotates. It's the same principle. When you have a magnetism, we assume that a magnet only has its greatest strength at the beginning, but that's not true. When you apply 2 different forces from a different angle, you can then get a different position where you've got the most intensity. Same as a microwave. A microwave, when you cook with a microwave, it doesn't cook from the surface, it doesn't cook from the very inside. It cooks from 25 millimeters either way. So it depends how you target the elements, how you target those particles, depends on the start point of where the greatest intensity, the greatest mass, the greatest gravity comes. And that's what these guys have done. They've just simply spread it out so it forms a force field. And from that force field going either way is gravity. Bloodlines, another word for saying bloodlines, is your ancestry. Now, on the planet here, we've got more than one type of human alone. We assume that we're all human. We are different beings. We are different species. And I'm not just talking of 2. We are not just 2 types of humans. We are we're a number of different types of humans. You'll take your red Indians is one type of human. Your red-haired people from the Nordic regions is another type of human. Your Chinese is another type of human. Your African peoples is another type of human. These are different humans. So when you talk of bloodlines, the bloodlines that they are guarding is the original bloodlines that we're talking of from within Agartha to who are the ruling clans. We've got 3 major ruling clans that operate and run this planet, who originate from inner Earth. So while we think we're hunting one bloodline, we're not. There's actually 3 bloodlines. They can read your mind, but that's not the point. They're not here to destroy us, Andy. They're here to help us. Each, depending which lineage you come through, I don't care whether you just got yourself a new kitten, whether you got yourself a new puppy, whether you got yourself a new car. You are going to look after it, even though it's totally different from you, even though it might come through you. It doesn't matter. The point is, we're going to protect what we deem as ours or what we have a vested interest in. So it's not a case of, he's different from me, therefore I'm going to shun him. It's not that. Again, the bottom line, it comes down to consciousness. When you look in astrology through the 7 planets, the highest planet would be Mercury, which is consciousness, intellect. It's all a mental thing. Mental projection versus astral projection is very different from physical projection, for example, on just that level. So when you do mental projection or you're reading somebody's mind, if you can read an aura, which you can actually train your eyes physically to read an aura of another person, it's on that level. It's again relative to what you've trained yourself. If that's what you feel you want to learn in this life, by all means, learn to read people's minds. It's not an impossible thing to do. Anybody can do it if it's your passion. They're not all interested. I mean, we assume that somebody's going to read your mind because he has an interest in controlling you. But it's not always a negative thing like that. We view reading minds as a very negative thing. It's not a negative thing. They do it to help us. They're not there to catch you out. Yes, there are people who've been into Inagartha. They're around us all the time. We do not realize it. Not everybody you see is a human. Although they're in human form, they are not human. Some of them come from there and are living amongst us right now. And we assume they're just amongst the elite. No, they're not. If you go and look at certain suburbs, you'll notice that there's the affluent societies, the affluent neighborhoods have, not all of them, some of them have that power, have that ability, and that's why they will generally conglomerate together, because they have a function to try and help what's going on here on Earth. So they're around us. Andy, none of us actually come from Earth. None of us are what we call human. We think we're human. None of us are human. This is the point of illusion. Illusion is so powerful that it'll make you believe the color blue is the color blue, when in actual fact it's light. It's on some other dimension. None of us on this surface are from here. People are afraid of, we like our safety zone. We like our comfort zone. Andy, but again, it's a consciousness. You're going to teach a child a very basic concept of life, a very basic principle of life, because it's for its consciousness. But as those who move on, and not everybody's on the same wavelength. So what the result is what you're putting out. You're trying to put out to the masses. One story is not good enough for everybody. That's why we have different religions. That's why we have different philosophies. That's why we have different subjects, history, geography, science, math, so forth. It's right for different people. We can't give everybody the same message. It's not going to work. No, I'm not in a hierarchy. I've come here from another place, like the rest of us. I've come here for a lesson to progress myself. Yes, the world around me is part of that interaction to help me grow. But it is not that the world is here to destroy me. The world is here to facilitate my journey of progress on a cognitive or a mental or a conscious level. Very interesting factor is we do not understand why families fight with each other. You need to realize they're different beings from different families, from different clans, from different dimensions. That explains so much why people fight. We're not all from the same, because sometimes you don't understand, how can this be my brother? How can this be my sister? They're so different. They are. They're not your same clan. And the beings that I talk with, there's different ways of being in touch with these guys. You're not always necessarily only going to be in touch with one dimensional or a being from, or beings from one dimension. You can sometimes be in touch with different beings from different dimensions. And this is what's so wonderful. It's not that we've only got Agartha and it stops there. It goes deeper. So you've got beings from one dimension helping you on one level. Beings from another dimension helping you on a totally unrelated subject. They are there also to help you, what we call the guardian angels. They will rock up, and it's not physical beings only. Yes, that happens. But sometimes a voice or something in your head or some feeling will just tell you, don't do this or don't go down there at the moment. That's another form. We always assume that these entities, these beings are going to show up as real, tangible, physical beings like you and me. No, they won't. You don't have to be contacted only through the physical. That is sometimes for those who want to believe, but remember, that's a consciousness level. They are not going to believe because they are not on the level yet to be trained, to be honed, to be guided for a higher upliftment for their journey. They demonize that because it is a power thing, but those who hear voices, you can choose to tell the world, or you can choose to keep it quiet. I mean, it's not a power trip to have contact. It's not an ego thing. You need to realize that these guys are contacting you for a purpose, for your well-being. And you're welcome. I mean, you don't have to, I mean, depending how many questions you've got, let's try and help the people out and give them answers. I don't know everything. I'm not a know-all. I've just what I've studied, what I've got from my own journey. It's a story, but you have to read between the lines and you start questioning, what was the rabbit hole down which Alice in Wonderland went? And what is the Wonderland? I mean, it's a wonderland. Why? There's a certain time when things are allowed to come out and a certain time when things are not. If you give, I've used this example before, if you give a teenager a Lamborghini, he could kill himself. It's not for everybody. They can only have it when they are ready. So it's not that it's hidden out of vindication. It's hidden because the person or the masses are not ready. Take, for example, you know that the inner earth, from where we get all our one technology, we get all our philosophies. If you understood that philosophy fully, are you interested in gold and money and all these material things when you realize that if you travel to another dimension, what do you carry with you? That's the real treasures. And we want to go to HOLGER. So we read about Olaf and his son that went there and they got these gold nuggets. Those gold nuggets are valuable here, not there. They're gold. I mean, you read in that story that their buckles and their different things were made of gold. They're not driven by a monetary system. There's one clan, as I said, because you got the 12, and I'll show you sometime. I mean, I can show you sometime what my signs look like hanging up here, my 12 signs. They each have got, let's call them different cities, have each got a different function, and they have a purpose to uplift the entire dimension. So what the result is, they are not driven by money. However, they have got a job. There's something that I also want to raise here, that when we think we are the only beings who have to pay to live on this planet, people also need to think very carefully how true is that statement, because those guys from HOLGER have a job. So they can't just be there in bliss. HOLGER is another word for heaven as well. They're not there just in bliss to sit and relax. They've got a job. So while we assume you're going to go to heaven and just be in bliss, nirvana, you're just going to relax and do nothing. No, it's not. You've got a function. So with the result, each of these 12 guys have got different functions. And remember, they are not standalone functions. They interact with each other. Yeah, you will travel through there. But it's not to say that you're only going to go through there. Andy, if you're going to go to college, which classroom are you going to go into? The college is filled with room upon room of different teachers, different lecturers, different subjects. Relative to your progress, you will enter a certain dimension. It's not to say we're all only going to travel through HOLGER. HOLGER is one of the closest dimensions to us. So most people will travel backward or return back into there, have their, let's call it, upgrade, come back to Earth, learn again what they have to until they progress. Some will shoot straight out and go beyond that to other deeper dimensions. So it's not the only gate. In Hindu philosophy, we've got 4 main classes. So relative to what your consciousness is, this is why they talk about your consciousness of death. Death is actually an art. Nobody actually pays much attention to how valuable the process of dying is. Dying is one of your greatest lessons, because what you haven't grasped in this life on a surface, on an external level, death will help you ensure that you get the consciousness to understand what is the point of what I'm doing here. How many times have we heard on the deathbed, this person suddenly had a realization, I've not achieved anything that I wanted to, if we think materially. But however, what if that type of consciousness wakes you up to realize there's more to life? Then you start thinking, so it sort of puts you on a turbo boost to question, what is the point of life? The Chinese use jade for more than one reason. You get different types of jade. The different types of jade, again, we think we're just going to use one crystal or one stone. Andy, every stone has a value for different functions, and it has a different property depending on its makeup. If you go back and you start realizing, and that's why I do recommend that people look at that video that said there are no trees on flat earth. When you realize that all of these stones, these gemstones, these semi-precious stones were actually living trees, they were actually living matter, you will realize how that encompasses the power, because they've got electricity running through them, what we call electricity. It runs deeper, but it's got that magnetism, that energy that runs from the roots, which get it from the earth, which get it from somewhere else. That is energy that they sucked up and held. So different combinations, different colors, different minerals that come together will produce different colors. They will produce different energies. So yes, they have different stones have got different purposes, and it's not that everybody should use the same stone. When we say something like tourmaline the black stone, I don't know if you know it with the striations. Now tourmaline is an excellent motivator. It improves your sense of smell. It can do a lot of things. However, for somebody who's already high wired, that's just going to push them over the edge. So it's not for everybody. So this is where people mustn't buy the one stone is tiger's eye for money, tourmaline for protection. It will heighten your energy. But at the same time, if you're already high on life, high on different things, and you now take that, you're going to drive yourself over the edge. Pain and suffering are sometimes some of your greatest motivators to progress. Now, when we learn we're going to die, when we learn we're going to be suffering, poverty, pain, illness, loss of people, and it pushes your consciousness to realize there's more important things to life. So when Hitler was given this technology to produce a war, let me take a bit of let's backtrack here a bit. There are three big guys who rule this planet. That's your Nephilim, that's your Nagas, and that's your Anunnaki. So when you realize these three rule as a unit, you will realize that they are working, they have a plan. So when they put certain things into motion, whether they give technology, whether they cause certain events, remember at the end of the day, these events are not about our material well-being. Life is not about materialism. How many times do we know and have we been told you can't take your money to heaven? What is the point? So what is valuable? Now, can you carry that? Can we develop that? Can we evolve that within us? That's what we want to evolve. No, it is. I mean, that stems from this Black Lives Matter in America. Again, the elite are on this side, and they're also promoting certain agendas, Andy. The political thing, what happens, we get so caught up in the politics of what's going on. In some places, it's dangerous. In some places, you're okay. Those agendas, you're going to get the good guys and you're going to get the bad guys. Those are power trips. I'm not saying it's not happening. It certainly is happening. Get the guys who are power hungry, who are driven by wanting to control. and they are going to push that agenda. All the prime ministers are puppets or have been put there for a reason. Yes, you can say on the one level, obviously he's trying to buy the vote. But when we have a look at the distractions that this is causing to not let us pay attention to what else they're doing in the background, while we so focus on the sensationalism, we're not looking what's going on behind this. They want to rule with fear. Fear is a very powerful driving force. So fear is certainly a tool to use to control people. And obviously they're going to incite the oppressed people to say, but you can get more of this, you can get more of that. Let's go for this. That's not the point of life. You see, I can get caught up in all this politics, but that's not the point of life. And it's very hard. It's very real. To be killing people it's not right, and it's not right to kill anything. There's two levels, as you say. The one is a control factor, but the other one is also as a consciousness. If you realize that, what's the point of attaining or amassing all this material wealth? And if we are to develop our consciousness, think about it. Let's look from a Christian point of view or any religious point of view. You leave this material body and you end up in front of God. Let's call it God. You end up in front of God. What are you going to discuss with him? What conversation are you going to have with him? On those levels, and we are so focused on this material wealth, and this person killed me in my last life, and this person's going to kill me, and this person's taking my house. Get in front of where you've got a more real life, because you have to question, and this is another thing relative to this subject. Why does the human only live on average for 75 years? You have to question, why have we been designed to only live for 120 years? The Bible says 120 years. The average person lives for 75 years. Why do the Algothans get to live for 1,000 years and we get to live for 100 years? So you have to question. There's some system here as to why we on Earth get only to live for between 70 and 100 years. And yet, whether you die of natural causes, whether you die being murdered, whether you die in an accident, you must ask yourself these deeper questions. Why are these limitations put there? And then it's not end. Energy cannot die. So why are we put here for that period of time?
So
you go to school and you go and learn a subject. The quicker you learn the subject, the quicker you can master your life. So those who come to Earth are given that 100-year, that 75-year lifespan in which to learn to master ourselves. And it's not about mastering so that I can be a saint or a sage, or I can just be a holy man and do nothing. No, you've got to function. Once you've attained a certain level, we call it a professor, a guru, a master. Once you've attained that, what's the point? The point is then to share and help the next being. So it's all about helping each other. It's not about all me, me, me. So if you haven't learned it within those 75 years, well, you're going to have to redo your standard. You're going to have to come back. Now, we look at that and we say, no, man, that's crazy. That's very hard. But what's the point of what we're doing here? Everything interests me. Everything beyond the five physical senses interests me. I'm interested in these beings from other places. I'm interested, what is their mathematics? What are they doing? What's their technology that they're doing there? At the end of the day, although something must die, death is a fraction of the entire process of that thing's life. So when you have a look at during the living time, you need to consider that. And at the end, you're going to have to finish your semester. You're going to have to shut the doors and shut the university and go home. Well, that's called death. And we have such an opinion because we're so attached to this body. Not that it's not easy to die. It's death can be a horrendous, painful process. It's a bizarre concept. Death is a bizarre concept. Suffering is a bizarre concept, and yet it's very necessary. Because if you want to teach somebody something, the fastest way to teach somebody something is to make them suffer, which is how the elite have mastered. What is all this electrocution about? I mean, it's the most efficient form of controlling a person. What do you think all these waves are that they're putting on us? These radio waves, these Wi-Fi waves, all these waves. What do you think they're doing? I mean, the technology that we have. How did the scientists know what the atom looks like? With the central point, some central thing, and with the atoms revolving around it. Where do you think that technology came from? I mean, they discovered that how long ago? You mean to tell me with a telescope or microscope they could actually see that? No, they got that from another world. Well, we focus on the scientific progress. Andy, there's so much more things. I mean, something that's of far more interest than that. So they're transforming lead into gold. But what about transforming yourself to another dimension? Which one are you going to choose? And you'll be given the appropriate body for that dimension. What you think on static dimensions? No, you're going to adapt. I mean, lead, when it's changed to gold, it changes its form, its chemical makeup. The same as when we move off into another dimension, our chemical makeup will change. People don't get born as babies in some dimensions. Some dimensions you're born as a baby. I mean, something that fascinates me. Have you ever seen a pregnant alien? So we have to question to ourselves, how are they born, and are they just fully grown? Well, we see this picture of little kids on the aliens' arms. Is that true? The Earth's surface is not for superior technology. This is not meant to be a very advanced place, and it's designed like that for a reason. We are not designed to be at the top level of whether technology, whether life, whether philosophy. This place is not designed to be top level. Again, if you think about it, if energy cannot die in your soul, or however you want to view it, if it comes from somewhere else and we get put here for a time, we get put here, let's call it to test out, at a level of words, to test out a certain system within ourselves. Once you've mastered that system, you go off to the actual classroom, the actual scientific lab, and you will then now give it to the world. So let's call it that the surface of the Earth, on a level of words, this is not to be taken the wrong way, not to be taken literally. At a level of words, this is a prototype platform of existence. So you're going to test out things until you've mastered it, until you've got it evolved to a certain degree. You're going to take it back and you're going to then apply it to its full extent. And we place such, but there's a very fascinating subject. When you look at the moon, which is within our, not everybody has to, I'm not saying everybody has to accept the enclosed system, but let's just look at a possibility here. The moon has got craters on it. Now, if according to my system where we say it's enclosed, how did those craters get on the moon? Then you have to start questioning what actually caused those. So if it's an enclosed system, now you start dealing into a different science, and it's known, this has been known for hundreds of years, is you get things called invisible comets. Yeah. That's into a certain place. It's scary to think where it's going, Andy. It's very scary to think where it's going. Why this unifying the whole world technology-wise? What's actually going on? And that's where you have to realize that the evolution process is actually, it has a purpose. We're not meant to be here forever. We're not going to live on earth forever and then simply go to heaven and that's it. There's much more to life than that. That's where, as I said, it helps to understand that the Anakim, the Anunnaki, well, let's call it the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, and the Naga. I assume your audience know who they are, the Nephilim being the giants, Anunnaki. They mustn't, the Anunnaki has been, we understand them as two people in one. They're a separate people, and then you've got the Nagas or the snake people. Yes, those. Yeah. Now, when people realize that those three are collaborating to push this place in a certain direction, they've got a certain agenda to which they must work. They've got to get it going. So they are behind all of this, but not, it appears very destructive, but it's forcing an upgrade. What is scary, or people don't know, is that happens on a generation to generation basis. It's not these jumps every few 100,000 years or few million years. These upgrades occur generation to generation. And people don't realize that. We think, oh, well, it's much slower. And that's why you'll see technology, the speed at which it's moving. That also equates when you start realizing what they're doing with the human population, with the human species. How fast we're being upgraded. No, Andy, you're not going to just in the game of Monopoly. You're not just going to roll your dice and pass go. It's an effort. You're going to have to do your part to qualify to move on to the next place. You're not just going to get a free pass. There is no such thing. It's a consciousness thing. Raise your consciousness. So you use the esoteric arts to elevate your consciousness, because the point is you can memorize all the esoteric arts, but you must actually learn their application. You must learn how to use them. If you can learn how to use them, because if you had to go to Agartha, what are the Agarthans doing? They're not living with money. They have these super fast highways, but they're not driven by money. So what are they doing there? I mean, we're not going to be driving a car all day. We're not going to be driving, I mean, that locomotive driver, do they have drivers on those trains? Or is it technologically driven? So the question is then, what are they doing? So you have to question, okay, so with this information, what are you going to do with it? So it's about application, again, of growing the mind. So you want to learn, I can learn to teleport. I can learn to travel interdimensionally. You learn to travel interdimensionally to help others. So if we're just going to learn and become professors and get degrees and get these various levels of education, and at the end of the day, it's about improving everybody and everything. And I'm not talking just human. I'm talking even your animal, your ecology, your earth, your trees. You're going to learn to enhance everything. So it's no good just saying, well, you know, I'm going to learn this and I've got a degree. It's application. Because there's other dimensions that they go off to. Them who've evolved, those who've evolved from Agartha will move into the next dimension. So it's not to say that they're static in there. And again, do they all die only after 1,000 years, or do some of them die prematurely? You see, these are questions we're not asking. We very, I mean, Andy is very interesting. Agartha's very interesting what's going on there. And you must realize that they have got access to other dimensions at any time. So the thing is Shambhala. Yes, Shambhala is the city center. No, Agartha is the entire place. Shambhala is the head city. You look at Mount Meru. In the Tibetan philosophy, they talk of Mount Meru, that square mountain that runs up. If you have a careful look at this, I don't know, because this is part of my talk, and I'm just questioning how you're actually going to put it in. But that Mount Meru is a stepped pyramid. And when you look at a stepped pyramid, it's logical that there are different levels, different layers. Now, when you realize they're different layers, they all have a different function, and then they work together as a whole. Once they work together as a whole, you can do something else or move into another place. So these different levels are run by different clans. They're not run by all the same people. Andy, all of this stuff is phenomenal. I mean, what you're putting out to help the world is fascinating. It really is. It's nice. I mean, you get people who are afraid, but you also get people, we're not meant to put everything out at the moment. So even like me, I'm even controlled to not say everything at right now. Well, as I said, if you're going to give somebody superior technology and they don't know how to use it, I mean, they're just going to make a mess. Speaking to those who are qualified, we can share, we can discuss, but not for the average person. It's not meant for them. I mean, you get those who are fanatical. Fanatics are very dangerous. And even fanatics like within this esoteric stuff. Andy, to be a fanatic where you're only going to follow one path, why are you going to limit yourself to one avenue? I mean, that's a fanatic is just not healthy. There's a lot of secrets. I mean, astrology hasn't even evolved to its full potential here on Earth. The 20th of December, I was talking to you about that date, the 20th of December. The 20th of December is an upgrade system. So that's a Earth system that's going to be upgraded, and we're going to move into that system, and that system holds for the next 30 years.